there's some really interesting news coming out of Ohio, and I want to read you a little bit from this story. So Ohio is suing Google. This is according to the Columbus
Yeah, this is really
Dispatch,
interesting.
seeking to declare the internet company a public utility. Now, Ohio is a state dominated by Republicans
Right.
at this point.
And Mike DeWine is the governor.
And Mike DeWine is the governor. And this comes from Ohio Attorney General David Yost. He's filed a lawsuit asking a court to declare Google a public utility that should be regulated as such. He said Google uses its dominance of internet search to steer Ohioans to Google's own products. That is discriminatory and anti-competitive. When you own the railroad or the electric company or the cell phone tower, you have to treat everyone the same and give everybody access. The lawsuit is specifically seeking a legal declaration that Google is a common carrier like phone, gas, and electric companies, which must provide its services to anyone willing to pay its fee. In lieu of a fee, Yost argues in the complaint, Google collects user data that's monetized primarily by selling targeted advertisements. This is the first time we've seen this particular approach. So we had, what is it, like 37 states attorneys general who signed
even more. I think it's like 42.
Huge number that signed on to an antitrust lawsuit against Google, alleging some of these same things in terms of anti-competitive behavior. But this is a little bit of a different approach, arguing that they should be treated and regulated as a public utility, which is something that a lot of lefties have been saying, but also there are a few Republicans, David Yost being one of them, and then a couple people in Congress too, who have been moving in that direction as well. So it is an interesting development.
So the fascinating part here is around the common carrier law. And this actually is almost exactly like the original fights over the railroads in the 1890s and Rockefeller and all of that, which is that what the lawsuit does seeks that legal declaration that Google is a common carrier, like a phone company, gas company, electric company. Therefore, actually, it has to provide its services anyone who is willing to pay a fee, which would make it much more like a public utility. Now, by doing that, what they're going to say is that the monetization over collected user data and by targeted advertisements actually selectively goes over and circumvents common carrier law, and it means that they're making a whole lot of money based upon some common carriers. So what he says then is that they should not be able to prioritize placement of its own products, services, and websites. I think this is really important because it sets the ground not just for Google, but for places like Amazon. For example, with Amazon, the big controversy is this. Private label brands like Amazon Basics, those have been around for a century in any sort of like market department store. But those were regional, right?
Right.
So Walmart has Walmart branded stuff. Macy's has Macy's branded stuff. Nordstrom has Nordstrom branded stuff. But those are regional monopolies and have regional footprints in physical locations. Amazon owns so much of e-commerce that the argument is that they are using the private seller data of their third-party vendors, seeing what people buy a lot of, and then creating their own. In principle, not necessarily anything wrong with that. But at scale, then it becomes the question of, are you a monopoly? Are you making it so that you can price out your competitors? And Amazon has claimed that it's part of their company policy that they don't do such a thing. But guess what? Emails revealed by the Wall Street Journal about 2 years ago show that that's complete BS. And when Jeff Bezos was asked about it before Congress, he had nothing to say. Shocker, right?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I have no idea. That's against our ethos, whatever. I mean, he barely even knows what's happening inside of Amazon. But this type of law, common carrier law and more, is an attack vector I very much expect to see happen more in terms of our national discourse, because there's been a lot of discussion. Is Google a monopoly? I don't know. And here's the question, and I actually got this from Andrew Yang when he was on our show, our very first interview with ever, Andrew Yang. And he told us, nobody wants to use the third best search engine. Nobody wants to use the fourth best Twitter. And the whole reason of Facebook is that everybody's on Facebook. I kind of agree with him. So what we're saying is that the internet naturally selects for monopolies. If that is true, common carrier law is actually a better way to describe this rather than breaking up these companies.
That is all really well said. And it does relate back to these old battles of the past, because there are certain markets, specific
railroads, a good
utilities,
example.
those are the classic examples that lend themselves to the sort of natural state of the market is a monopoly or something close to it. And so you could very much make that case for Google search results, for certain social media platforms, because of course the whole value of a social media platform is that you can connect with all the people you know in your circle and your friends, or the people you like as journalists or celebrities, et cetera, that they're all in one place, is what gives those social media platforms all of their value. So I can very easily see the case that those markets are sort of natural monopolies or close to it. And so if you accept that that is the case, this is the almost only direction that you can ultimately go in. Along with the other thing that you have to layer on top of this is part of why places like, I mean, Amazon's the one that is really, really disturbing because they have such a large, vulnerable blue-collar workforce.
Yes.
So
the second largest employer in the United States.
Right. So part of what is so damaging about Amazon is that they have so much power over the labor markets. So in addition to the regulation as like a common carrier or public utility, you have to layer on top of that really strong provisions with regards to how employees are treated and all of those labor market conditions as well, since you're accepting that this gigantic behemoth company is going to be an integral part of the fabric of America. Like, if you're not going to break them up, then you have to regulate every aspect of what they're doing to make sure that it's actually beneficial to the country and to the workers there.
No, you're right. And this is the most important and difficult part with Amazon. Amazon, I just read this book by Brad Stone. I've read his first book. I interviewed him on the Realignment podcast as well. Amazon is this like tentacles in everything. They're a retail company. They're the most successful retail company probably in America outside of Walmart. They are the most successful web hosting company basically in the entire world. They are also now a Hollywood studio. They are, it's like everything. And they're also, by the way, a subscription platform in terms of Amazon Prime. There are more people in America who have Amazon Prime memberships than who put up Christmas trees. Amazon is literally more American than apple pie.
The backbone of the internet infrastructure with their cloud computing service is actually their most profitable thing that they do.
And which then subsidizes some of the other. So it's like, it's very difficult to unravel all of these things. And actually, Amazon is just like Google. Google is Google Search, which has YouTube, which we're literally on right now. Do you guys want to know something crazy? YouTube made more money than Netflix last year.
Wow.
And they didn't have to pay a dime in original content. We're out here slaving away for free. We're uploading all of this to YouTube so people can watch it, which is kind of nuts when you start to think about it.
I mean, it's a brilliant model.
No, I mean, listen, it's a cool platform, but it's like Google, then you got YouTube. And then you've got, YouTube's a $15 billion company on its own. And then you've got all sorts of other extraneous projects, Gmail, Google Chrome, etc., which all become vertically integrated. And it's like I said, maybe that is just how the internet's gonna work. Maybe. I actually accept that. Winner take all system, zero marginal cost businesses, I understand. But if that's the case, the public has to start having a chance. I really think that's where it all comes down to.
Transparency, regulation, equal access.
Equal access is a huge part too.
And labor market conditions that allow for unionization, fair living wages, so that the workers at these companies are able to make a living for themselves and able to feed their families in lives that are relatively dignified.